Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us today. So I love the opportunity this show gives me to interview people that I highly respect and think are amazing humans. So today I have Carrie Glover, and she is a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist and a great friend of mine. And so I'm so glad to be bringing her on the show. She is a mom of 2. And she's going to be sharing with us her advice, her personal experience, as well as her therapeutic knowledge in parenting the young adult. With that, let's get to Carrie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Okay. So I am not in this stage yet,
Yes.
but I think you are raising young adults.
I am.
Yes.
We have a 22-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son. And so it has been an interesting time to sort of make this transition from having kids, young kids and teenagers, and into this adult world together.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's been fun and interesting and sometimes painful, and we're figuring it out.
Yes. Well, and I think, I love that we're talking about this because I think you do lots of things thoughtfully, which is what I think makes you an amazing therapist. But I think also, like, when I hear you talk about parenting your kids, so often you put a lot of thought into this and you have just such meaningful conversations. And I think this is something that will be helpful for parents who don't have the same skill set that we do to navigate this. And, the truth is, I mean, I don't remember getting a lot of training in young adult therapy.
No.
Like, I am a child therapist.
Yep.
And then there's adult therapists.
Yeah.
And young adults don't fit in either of those categories.
Right. That's so true, which is, I think, what sometimes makes this period feel a little foggy or quicksandy, or like, what is this and what are we doing? And we don't talk about this. It's sort of like you have them under your roof and then they're gone and now it's over. And it's like, no, there's still this sort of liminal in between space, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think, to be honest, we're still in some way, shape, or form parenting through all the stages until we die, right? Like, we are still doing that, because even with my mom being deceased now, I mean, like, there are times where I'm like, I just like want to ask my mom like this thing, or like I want to hear her advice on this piece. And like, part of that's wisdom. Part of it's probably wisdom on my side to know, like, my mom actually did know what the hell she was talking about. Sorry, folks. But yeah, moms are pretty smart. Dads are too. But like, we've been through stuff, but like, we also want to experience stuff. I mean, it's just, I feel like as a younger person, I struggled to take advice from my parents sometimes because I so desperately just wanted to adult.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah. And I do feel like there is an interesting part in this phase that we find ourselves in now, where it is sort of like, you can't really tell them much when they're teenagers. Like, that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Like, they're supposed to be sort of pushing on authority and doing this stuff. And then when they sort of get out there and they realize, oh, I have baby bird legs, there is some stuff that I'm not sure what I'm doing. And hopefully, right, you've built the relationship where they can say that and where it can go well and you can be a support to them. Yeah.
Yes, ideally, right? But we're going to screw it up sometimes.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Well, I was thinking about that earlier when you said not everyone has the training we have. And I wanted to say, Bryce, I have the training and I still mess it up. I've still messed it up plenty of times.
Yes.
1,000,000%. Like, that isn't always a protective factor.
No, I think it helps though, because we can we can sometimes have self-awareness enough to like slow down and be like, okay, pause. I
Yeah.
got to regroup here. But
You're so
you're
right.
so right. I mean, even being a child therapist, there are plenty of things that I totally understand developmentally, or I understand trauma and how it impacts kids. And yet, in my own kids' life,
Right.
sometimes I just don't see it, or I don't recognize it, or I don't respond the way I wanted to. But also, repair is so important, right? And so
Mhm.
we have the opportunity, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that
We
today in our
absolutely
conversation too. Okay. So let's just like jump into this to
Yeah.
say, how can parents support their young adult children in making big life decisions without taking control or creating tension? Like
Mhm.
this might be, I mean, these are all important questions, but this one
Yeah.
is like one that I hear complaints about so often on both sides, from
Yeah.
parents and the young adults.
So, with hopefully a historical build, which also you can change and pivot
Mhm.
and do something different at any point along the way, even in this young adult phase. But I think supporting them as they make, these big life decisions, one of the things that I think about is what is your role as a parent at that point? And I
Mhm.
really think your role is you're a consultant.
Yes.
Your job is to sort of let them be discovering who are they? What do they care about? What is
Mhm.
interesting to them? They're sort of doing this process of becoming and unfolding themselves. And so to think of yourself as I'm a cheerleader, I'm an encourager, I'm maybe someone who helps think through logistics, right? When
Mhm.
they come to me and say, here's kind of something I'm thinking about, or I can offer like, here are different ideas. Are any of those intriguing to you? I think
Mhm.
that conversation back and forth is also very important to say, actually, they get a seat at the table in making these decisions. And in fact, they get the most important seat at the table at
Yes.
this
Yes.
point in life.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes I think I wish that I would have known to not picture my kids' lives when they were little and play it out.
Mhm.
Sometimes I feel like that can be a trap because then what happens when they arrive at whatever point you've pictured and they throw an absolute wrench in it, which they will,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you're sort of left, but wait, this isn't how I thought this was gonna go.
Mhm.
And that can sometimes be what builds in some of that tension
Mhm.
or disconnection because they're not doing it right,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
isn't true, but
But
that's
you're right,
but
because it is, I mean, I don't know how you don't dream your kids' lives. Like, I mean, my
yeah,
kids are littler, and to imagine things like, I don't know, like expanding your family, like that one day they would get married and have children, or
mhm,
that whatever it is, right? Like that
mhm,
they would adopt kids or
mhm,
whatever that looks like. But I think
right,
we all, like, for the continuation of our species in some way, shape, or form,
mhm,
imagine that there's going to be a continuation of our lineage.
mhm,
And for a lot of people, I mean, I think our numbers are dwindling in how many kids people are having, and changing timing on getting married or being in committed relationships like that. But historically, that has been something that has been true. So it's kind of passed down generation to generation of, like, you might hear your parents say, like, when your kid is born, like, I imagine this day.
mhm,
Right? And so then it's like something that you get
mhm.
passed to you of like, okay, I'm going to imagine that day, but it's not like intentional. It's just like
Sure,
that
not
may be
at
a
all.
highlight of your life too, or maybe a struggle. And you're like, I just want it to be different for you. I want you to have these things in place. And I think it comes out of a protective factor, probably,
Mhm, mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know that it's something that we necessarily control, but you're right. Maybe it's just something where we give ourselves the permission to just hold it really loosely
yeah,
and to say, I can't tight grip this. I
yeah.
can think about this and imagine, and maybe I imagine multiple. Maybe that's
Hmm.
part of the antidote as well, right? Is imagining multiple outcomes and just holding it all really loosely. I do think is inherently a part or a piece of that navigating this part of life
Hmm.
without creating disconnection or expectations or
Yes.
tension or
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think it is often our things that get in the way. I think that's what does create the tension,
Totally.
because the young adult is doing their thing,
Yeah.
and then we're actually the party that brings the tension.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I
Dang
completely
us.
agree. Yeah. And
So,
This
Go
is
ahead.
such an important stage of life where it can't be about us.
Yes.
It's not about us. It is about these people that you've loved and poured into and, built relationship with, sort of setting out and again, figuring out their own selves, their own
Mhm.
lives, their
Mhm.
own beliefs, their own way,
Yes.
and who they are.
Because there's 1,000 ways to do everything, right? I
Sure.
know that we may think this is the right way, right?
Mhm.
But that's not really true because if that was the way, I like to say to parents, then there would be only one type of architecture. There would only be one offering of clothing. And as you can see, I'm wearing something today different than you. And so then that would mean that we would all wear the same thing or have the same rotation of clothing. And
Yeah.
that's not the case. And so there's tons of different ways to do every single thing. And it might be uncomfortable. We have to sometimes get comfortable with being uncomfortable and
Mhm.
not being the authority or the best person to give the information. But I think also to remember that in adolescence, which our young adults are still in until 25,
Mhm.
right? So in adolescence, their friend, their peer group becomes way more important than us. And it's not because they don't love us or care about us, but
Mhm.
that's part of their development into the world is to have a peer group because here's the reality. At some point we're going to die. We are not going to live, hopefully, we will die before our kids die, right? Like we
Yeah.
want that to be the case. We
Yeah.
want to let them live a whole life, right?
Mhm.
And so that means they're going to have to do life without us. So if they don't know how to use any other support than us,
Mhm.
it's going to be really really hard for them.
Yeah, crippling can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, I didn't ask for help from anybody but my mom, really. I mean, obviously my partner, but like, I think,
Mhm.
I didn't really ask other people that I didn't know super well for help. I would be like, especially with our kids, like my mom was our go-to person. And I definitely had to learn how to ask for help, which has been a gift, but
Yeah.
also hard, right? Like I
Yeah.
wish it would have been easier sooner, but I just
Yeah.
didn't learn that skill because my mom didn't have that skill. So she didn't share that with me on how to ask for help. And so then that just meant that I saw that modeled and then that's how I
Mhm.
did it. But like I hope that I'm modeling for my kids how
Something
to
different.
ask for help. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think my mom would have wanted that, like, but she
Mhm.
just didn't know right at that
Sure.
time. And
Sure.
so it's not like for a lack of wanting, but just like thinking about that of like our kids are, yes, we are an expert in our lives. We're
Mhm.
an expert in them historically, but like this is
Mhm.
also a time where they're flying, right?
Yes.
Even with these little baby bird legs, as you say it. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what are common ways that you think that young adults push back or will
Mhm.
disconnect from their parents? And then how can we respond to that in a way that maintains connection?
Great. I love this question. I think that kids do really challenging and hard and beautiful things. They do things like they explore differences, right? They'll explore difference. They'll push back against family norms or
Mhm.
family rules, right? They maybe are having less contact. They're maybe telling you about less things. They maybe have more secrets than they had when they were younger. I
Mhm.
think, and you sort of alluded to this, I think it is so important for any parent, whether you're a therapist or not a therapist, to have some measure of awareness of what are the developmental stages. What is the stage that your kid is in, and what are the normal and typical things that they're doing in
Mhm.
these different stages? And I think in that adolescence is where what they're choosing and what they're needing to do developmentally is really
Mhm.
challenging and uncomfortable for the
Yes.
parents.
Totally.
But they're doing a lot of that, I think, pushing away. They're in this process of individuating from the
Yes.
family and from their parents and from the home in many ways. And so I think that that is what you can expect to see. And
Mhm.
as far as a parental response to that, again, I think normalizing that for them, like, yep, you're doing right exactly what you're supposed to be doing right now. It's okay
Mhm.
that you didn't tell me that. I can understand you wanting to have some stuff that I don't know about, right? Like
Mhm.
normalizing it, really holding it with a lot of non-judgment and not guilt, right? It's not the parent saying like, well, you never want to be around the family anymore. Well,
Mhm.
okay, we can't do that.
Mhm.
Even though
Mhm.
that may be something that we're feeling. We're feeling a sense of sadness about that, or discomfort with them not wanting to be as connected or as around. This is really the stage where we have to regulate our own emotional state or find our peers where we get support from and not put any of
Mhm.
that on the kid whatsoever. And yeah, I think just being again an encourager and a supporter. I've really been thinking about this concept, Bryce, and it's not really a concept, it's just a language change
Mhm.
of open nesting, right? Instead
Mm.
of being an empty nest, we're an open nest. And
Mhm.
I think about that both in the stage when they're still at home and once they move out and move away, right?
Mhm.
That we're an open nest. You can go out into the world and you can come back here anytime you
Yes.
need to. And when
Yes.
they're at home, it's like you can go out and explore and do all that. And then
Mhm.
if you need something from me emotional, come back. The nest is open. If you need
Mhm.
advice, come back. The nest is open. If you go out into the world and you do move away and then something doesn't quite go as planned, like we can open nest. Now, does that maybe at some point have its edges? And again, can it turn into something where it's more maybe debilitating or,
Mhm.
you're a challenge? But I don't know. I just really sort of like this, if I'm thinking about an attachment lens, and an individuation lens, this rhythm of we need to be able to go apart and come back together and go
Mhm.
apart and go back together. And that's more than just the physicality of that.
Yeah.
It's also emotionally and
Mhm.
intellectually
Mhm.
and value. I mean, all of it, just the
Yeah.
ability to go apart and come back together.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that language of an openness because I do think that like when I think about what I want, that's what it would look like. And then when I think about what I had, that generally is how it
Mhm.
looked of like it was safe to come back and say, I don't know how to do this. Or
Yeah.
I got myself into trouble and I don't know how to get out. Can
Yes.
you help me? Or
Yes.
I have this problem or I want to do this thing or, what advice can you give? Or I'm
Mhm.
going to go back to master school. Can I move back home?
Mhm.
Right. Like that was something that was allowed. And I'm so glad for it because it would have been really hard without that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what people have to do, but I
Right.
think oftentimes, in this stage, parents take things personally. Like it's like an
Yeah.
affront to them, but it really has very little to do with you. I
Very
mean,
little.
like in terms of how you support and those kind of things, what environment you created, that is somewhat on you, right? Like
Yeah.
how you've
Sure.
responded to situations. But I
Yeah.
think in terms of like your kid doing normal young adult adolescent things, that very much has to do with them and the stage that they're in.
Yes.
And so don't take it personally
Yeah.
because otherwise you are going to be hurt. But then I
Right.
was also thinking like when you said, okay, so don't express, or like you didn't say don't express your feelings, but like find another area
Mhm.
to express that. But
Yep.
could you say something? And I really want you to tell me what you think about this
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
haven't been in this space before.
I will.
But I think, when I think about you can have your feelings hurt and find a way to also still meet the need and probably express yourself. So what I was thinking was to say like, "Hey, I miss you being at home. And I know that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. This seems so normal. And I remember doing this myself.
Mhm.
Would it be possible for us to agree to a time where I know that I get to see you and spend time with you?
Mhm.
Would that
I
be okay?
love that. I love that. I think that's appropriate, right? It is appropriate in that you're, I think, conveying the reality that there is impact between these two subsystems of parent and child. Like
Yeah,
there is impact, you do impact each other.
sure.
But it's also, and I love the way you worded it because it is also putting no responsibility on the child, whether they're young or a teenager or a young adult, to take care of the emotions of the parent, but it's just saying, here's something I'm noticing in myself. I can check and see, does it work for you for us to find some time? Or, hey, I love that you have all these friends and you're doing this really important thing of growing connection with other people. And I'm just noticing that I am missing you. when would
Mhm.
be a good time for us to hang out? Or I'd
Yeah.
love to do, what would feel connecting for you? Like,
Mhm.
and even though you may not be feeling that you're missing me, and that's totally fine and
Yes, yes.
normal.
Yeah.
And I'd love to spend some time with you. When can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally appropriate.
Because I find that oftentimes what my teenagers are saying is like, they'll say that their parents will say, like, you're never home anymore. Like,
Yeah,
you don't want to spend time with me, or you don't
right,
care about our family anymore,
right.
or, like we've put so much into you and this is how you treat us. So that part of like, there's guilt or shame associated with
Mhm,
that. I mean, I think when anybody has that, we have our defense mechanisms, and
mhm,
we are
mhm,
going to use one of them to
mhm,
either put it back on you. We're
mhm,
going to reject it. We're going to become defensive. It's going to, I think, go back into that first question where I was asking about, to keep the tension from creating.
yeah,
It's also being thoughtful about our language, right?
yeah,
Like, of what do we really want them to know? Like,
right,
like what we really want them to know is not that like they have to take care of us, or that it's their
right,
responsibility to be home or
right.
whatever, but it is, we want them to know that like, hey, I care about you. Even though you're older now, I think you're really awesome and I
Mhm.
value this relationship.
Yes.
And if they can hear that, they would probably most likely also respond positively to that. But if
Yeah.
I feel attacked, then I'm going to be like, I'm out of here. Like, I'm going to take my car and leave. I don't want to be part of this.
It really does more damage to the relationship.
Yes.
And I think in the way that you sort of worded the reframe of that, it lets them know that they're wanted, that
Mhm.
they belong, that they're valuable. Like you're not saying those words, but
Mhm.
you are inherently communicating and implicitly communicating those things to your teenager who, guess what? They love feeling wanted and
Mhm.
valuable. Like that's a big part of what they're working to figure out still. And so
Yeah.
if we're trying to do this behavior modification and make them stay home because we're feeling sad and missing them, it's going to be absolute roadblock to the relationship, an absolute roadblock to the connection, and will probably actually get you less time
Mhm.
around.
Yeah. Yeah, something my mom said to me that I'm just thinking about now is like, she said there was like a time where I was struggling with some friendships, and she said like, if I was your age, I would definitely want to be friends with you, somebody like you, and like be friends with you. And I like, that always sticks with me, even though that happened when I was
Mhm.
probably like 15 years old.
Yeah.
That's something that like, I don't know, is just like so meaningful. So I think
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know what the things are that we're going to
Yeah.
say, but like, from a place of being authentic, right? Like, especially
Yeah.
since we want our kids to be authentic with us,
Yeah.
we also have to be authentic back, but like thoughtful. And I think as a teenager, I probably said some really shitty things to my parents,
Sure.
if we're being totally transparent, right? Like things that I'm like, that was not my best move, right? But like in the moment I felt it so intensely. But, I think we can't act like that, like as the grown up, right?
Right.
Like and not that we have to like accept that behavior. We can say like, hey, that really hurt my feelings, is like, or what I heard was this, is that what you
Yeah.
meant? And maybe it's about like letting them calm down, come back to the conversation,
Mhm.
right? Is
Mhm.
another
Mhm.
strategy that I think works well with just like people in general, but
Yeah.
especially with our teenagers and young adults that are trying to figure things out. They might be really upset, and then it
Mhm.
might not be as impactful, or they might find another way to say it, or we might be able to solve the problem, because that's really what you want to do, is
Right.
solve whatever the real problem is.
Yeah. Yes. Totally agree. Also, completely agree with your mom. You are a great person to be a friend with. I
Thanks,
didn't know you
Carrie.
when you were 15, but I could vouch for it at this point for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I would have been friends with you at 15 too. I mean, it's funny how you grow into yourself and like
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm proud of who I am today.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like all
Yeah.
the supports that went into that, like
Yeah.
to think about all the people that
Yeah.
helped me, helped you, helped our kids to
Yeah.
become who they are. Wow. Like how lucky.
Yeah, which I mean, that makes me think about so much of those early teen and teenage years. There's enough self-doubt in there.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
enough. As parents, really being cognizant to make sure that we're not contributing to more of that, but that we're
Mhm.
also working to relieve it and to encourage and
Mhm.
support and sort of be a sturdiness for kids as they have enough self-doubt.
Yes.
They've got enough.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Especially now, right? In this day
Yeah.
and age, it's coming from every direction potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So how do you think parents, okay, so let's say, things seem fine with our kids, but like we're in this place where we're like, okay, is my help helpful or is this hindering my kids' growth? How do we reflect on that?
Mm-hmm.
How can we think about that in a way to, I mean, because like I said, teens can be shitty, right? Just like I was. Like we can say things that we don't really mean and do things that we don't really mean, or it can be totally honest. So how do we as a parent reflect on our behavior to say like, hey, am I helping my kid here or am I part of the hindrance here? Am I getting in their way?
That's such a good question and such a hard question because there's a part of me that's like, I'm not quite sure
Mm-hmm.
because there is this sort of there's this dynamic of we're always doing what we think is best by our kids.
Sure.
And it's not until sometimes retroactively we look back and we were like, that was totally a blind spot that I had at that moment,
Mm-hmm.
even though I thought I was doing the best thing I could for them. I
Yeah.
can see how it actually hindered them or it actually hurt them or it was not helpful or supportive
Sure.
at all. So as far as how to reflect on that in the moment, the two things that come to mind is you as a parent and adult having good support systems around yourself to
Mm-hmm.
bounce things off of, get other people's eyes and ears and voices on things, people that you trust and where trust has really been built. And then I also think this is an area where you can have this is the part of having older kids that is literally so much fucking fun. You can have these conversations with them.
Yes.
You can talk like they will again, those foundational pieces are all really important and can be built at any time, but having foundational pieces in place where you can say, "Look, I am always trying to mother you the best that I can, but I think there's stuff that I don't know. There's stuff that I don't see. Tell me your thoughts on how I can mother you better. Or if I really want to see you become more and more independent, how do you think I can help you and support you?
Mm,
What's the best way that I can do that with you? How can we do that together?" Giving them, again, a seat at the table, saying, your voice actually matters in how I interact with you.
mm-hmm.
How you work and how you're thinking about this actually matters when it comes to how I mother you and parent you. So I want to know, I want to hear from you because I
Mm-hmm.
think we can be lulled into this sort of belief system that says, I'm the parent, I know best, or like
Yeah.
I'm the mom. So my gut mom instinct is always going to be the right thing. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, sometimes it's not, or you
Mm-hmm.
think you know something about your kid and then they start opening their mouths and tell you something and it totally blows up whatever you thought you knew. And so I think making them a part of the conversation is helpful as you whenever you're evaluating your parenting and where you're hitting the mark and where you're not.
Yes, which I think takes a very high level of openness, right? Like we
Mhm.
have to be willing to hear what we hear back because if you were only wanting to hear accolades, I don't suggest this path.
No.
My kids are probably my toughest critics. I mean, I have
Yeah.
patient families that are definitely way more in my cheer camp, right? Like
Yeah.
they're like, "Yes, you're doing this so good." And then my kids are like, "You suck at this." No. But I mean they're more reflective because they
Yeah.
have a vested interest in me doing well, right?
Right.
Like it's not just lip service, right? Like they
Right.
really want this relationship to be good
Mhm.
because, if your things aren't going well in therapy, you can just find another therapist. But
Right.
finding another mom sounds like a very large challenge,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
it is that would be hard, right? Like
Yeah.
and nobody else is your mom. I mean, since my mom died, I feel like I'm talking about her a lot, but like, I mean,
Yeah.
she was such an important person in my
Mhm.
life and like, but nobody is her. I found a lot of people that are very similar to her and I appreciate
Mhm.
and I have like asked for them to be part of my life to give me feedback and like help, but like they don't have the historical knowledge sometimes either, or
Mhm.
just the same thing. So I think,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
one mom, one, you know, one set of parents, however that looks for your family. And, that's what you go through. And so, yeah, there can be people who do it better, but I don't know. I think, or different. I don't know that it's better, but like, I think I've never met a parent who's like, you know what I want to do? Screw my kid up. Like, I really want to like mess them up good, right? Like, I just want to like jumble all the shit together. Like, that's not really how it is. I think we're doing the best we can. It's just that sometimes we don't know how to do it. So I love this idea of really thinking about putting our kids at the table. Like, they're at the head of the table now, right? Like, we're just like the supportive side. Like, they're the king of their world, the queen of their world, right? And then we're, these mentors, guideposts, these consultants to help them, do life the best way, to be hurt the littlest amount possible, to fall the least. But knowing those things are going to happen. They are going to trip. They are going to fall. They are going to mess things up. And then you kind of have to wait for them to come back and ask for help. Right.
Yeah. 1,000,000%. Yeah. I mean, I think that's such a good, that's there's such a tight rope to be walked between safety and protection, but still allowing for risk taking. Like, how important risk taking, depending on what type of risk taking we're talking about here, right?
Yes.
That having enough space and enough comfortability with uncertainty, unknown, and failure, even, or getting it wrong and messing up, and having enough space that allows for that to be done safely, is a challenge. But yeah.
I mean, this kind of leads us into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. It is like mental health and raising a young adult, right? Like, so when they're young, they're in elementary school, they're middle school, even high school, we have a lot more, I mean, control, especially like legally, we have some control, right? But then I think, when they're in elementary school, like, they don't know any different, right? Like, we're a lot of their guideposts on this. And so they're really leaning on us to do a lot of things in this realm. But like, how do parents navigate the mental health? Like, I'm thinking, like, I have a, 22-year-old and she or he is like super anxious, or, they're having suicidal thoughts, or they're like, where are the lines here? Because I think this is a place that we don't really talk about. And I know that I've walked with parents through this part of having young adults who are over the age of 18, and things change legally in terms of what you can do too.
I mean, first, I just want to validate this part can be so scary for us as parents, and can be where we feel the most powerless.
Yes.
And so again, it makes me think, like, have people, your spouse, if that's available, both actually available and emotionally available. And that can happen there, where there's care, and you can say, like, I'm freaked out of my mind. This is so scary and I feel so powerless, right? And you have other places other than your kid where those big, scary feelings can go. I mean, I also think, like, the biggest gift that you can be to your kid's mental health journey is to have been a good friend to your own, and to have really done your own work. This is true for us as therapists, right? Like, you cannot take any client further than you've taken yourself down any road of growth and exploration and corrective strategies like that. It's the same with our kids. I also think talking about it with them very openly and plainly. I remember when I was getting my master's in marriage and family therapy, we had a professor who was saying, look, we have to be able to talk about suicidality like we're talking about a cheeseburger. Which when you're in the parent role is so difficult, because the idea of suicidality is so big. It's so, again, so scary. It evokes so much fear and even sometimes panic, but we have to regulate ourselves enough to
Mm-hmm.
talk openly and plainly and clearly in really specific ways with our kids about mental health, as well as what is the family history. Like, are you talking about that with your kids?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
we see this a lot in our family, or, this person had this diagnosis, or there's a lot of anxiety in this line of the family. And so that's what this is feeling like to me. What do
Mm-hmm.
I just think talking about it, not being afraid to talk about it, but making sure that as a parent, you're regulated enough to again be the sturdiness for some of those really, really difficult, hard conversations, and
Mm-hmm.
not just conversations, but realities that these kids are living in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think again, that openness concept too, of like, if your kid is struggling, it's okay to let them come home. And then you figure out, like, once we're stable, what does that look
Mhm.
like? Right. Like, you don't have to always set up the terms ahead of time because you don't know what you're really walking into. But I
Sure.
think, I mean, it's hard because, like, we have drug addiction, we have alcohol addiction, we have
Right.
gambling addiction. Right. And so then it's
Right.
also like, you can also set limits to say, I love you, but I can't bring that into my house.
Yes. In fact, that is an important and supportive thing that you would need and have to bring in if there was any chance of healing around, especially substance use
Mm-hmm.
and addictions. Like, yeah, there has to be boundaries. What will you allow and what will you not allow? And that's not for your own self, but because, again, if you were to allow it, it's a disservice to them. You're not helping them get well, get better. And that has to be priority number one, and what the filter that every decision gets ran through.
Yeah, which is so hard. I mean, we could go
Yeah.
down that road of how complex addictions are,
Yeah.
but I think these are things to also be considering. And I think, like, in terms of suicidality, if you have a kid that a friend calls and says that they're worried, you
Mhm.
can contact the police for a well check, right? To just
Mhm.
make sure that they're okay. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're going to come home. That doesn't mean anything's going to change. I mean, it is hard stuff. I've
Yes.
certainly walked parents through this, but
Mhm.
you have to have legal authority over their decision making. You have to be their guardian again,
Mhm.
right? And to
Mhm.
say that they're enabled to do that. And that is very, very hard
Yeah.
just for parents that have gone down that path. And so sometimes it's better to go alongside them to try to take control again. But sometimes there are times where that is necessary.
Necessary. Yeah.
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 But it is a difficult road because you
Mhm.
legally have to prove that they cannot take care of themselves, which is definitely a challenge.
Right.
Oh man, yes. Hopefully, people are having good conversations around it. But I think you're to your point of, like, talking about family history, because then that opens them up to talking about what they're experiencing too, right? So if
Right.
it's like anxiety runs in the family, and you're noticing like anxiety is presenting, then it's like, hey, yeah, like, I dealt with this, or your dad
Mhm.
dealt with this, or your
Mhm.
grandma, or whoever, right? Like,
Right.
anybody in your family has navigated this, then
Right.
it helps them to know that you're maybe more open to having that conversation, and you don't have to have all the answers.
No.
Sometimes it's just good to be a sounding board of just being like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, or what can I do to support you?
Yeah. Well, and I think at the very least, that also can relieve how isolating mental health can
Hmm.
feel sometimes, especially when you're younger and it's new and you don't have all of these connector points of like, oh, yeah, I know these people and these people who've experienced this before. They're young. They're not talking about this in their circles all the time.
Hmm.
Sometimes they might be, but not all the time. So even having that conversation, or talking about family history, or talking about, can relieve that. What's wrong with me? This is just
Hmm.
something that's only wrong with me,
Yes.
and
Yes.
destigmatize that to some
Yes.
extent.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are definitely doing a better job as young people talking about mental
Yeah.
health things, but
Yeah.
there's still a part where it's like, especially if you've maybe in life been a kid that, like, did things one way, and now things are harder, or something's changed, and
Mhm.
so then it's like a different identity, and you're not comfortable with this. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, it's fine for everybody else to have anxiety, or
Mhm.
whatever the dynamic is, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
fine. Like, I just found out I have ADHD. Well, okay, it's fine for everybody else to have it, but now there's something really wrong with me. And so,
Yeah.
like, sometimes it's also adjusting to that piece of noticing something new about yourself that
Yeah.
you didn't know either.
That then has to be integrated in some
Yes.
way. Yeah.
To the
Yeah.
family or to yourself.
Or to
Yeah. I
yourself.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's say that, I mean, I think it's normal to have conflict, right? So
Mhm.
in families, there's conflict that arises
Mhm.
and how we handle it matters. But how do you think, I think some of the things that I hear people talk about, especially in this age group, is when our kids have different values than us, when they
Mhm.
have different lifestyle choices or career paths, how do we navigate that
Mhm.
dynamic, maybe without causing conflict or having a, I mean, conflict may still arise, but like having a healthy, productive conversation around
Mhm.
this?
Yeah, I think in some ways this is sort of a culmination of everything we've been talking about so far, right? Of like, okay, they're actually going to there is going to be difference. So, what matters to you? Like, we don't have a lot of conversations in our society about how to do difference really well.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? What does
Hmm.
that look like? And within families, it's sort of like we have to intentionally evaluate, okay, is if I go back to the exercise of like, what are the top things that you want them to leave your home with? Is it that you want to believe them to believe everything exactly the same way you do? Is that like, does that matter most? Does it matter most that if you're an architect, they become an architect? Like,
Hmm.
are those things making the list or not?
Hmm.
More than likely, they're not necessarily making the list.
Hmm.
So that sort of reminder of this isn't about you. Actually, difference in values or difference in lifestyles or difference does not mean bad.
Hmm.
And if there are differences, how are you going to do them well together? And it's not about you. And how do you stay? It's about maintaining respect and love and connection while there is also difference,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
also don't
Well,
think we talk about a lot.
yeah. No, well, and I think we should probably expect our kids to be different than us
Yeah.
because I think I'm different than my parents. Are you different than your parents?
Yep.
Right? Like, and there's some ways we're incredibly similar and also ways that
Yeah.
I am incredibly different. And then
Yep.
other ways where it's like the difference is, maybe not really noticeable to
Mhm.
the average person, right? Like I
Mhm.
might know the difference, they know the difference, but it's not palatable, right? Like it's like
Mhm.
not something that really is making a huge impact. But I think this reminds me of, there was a time when maybe I was like 16 or 17 and I knew where my dad stood politically, right? So
Mhm.
I, for whatever reason, totally chose the exact opposite position. Okay. And so, but like, I didn't really feel that way. But in his eyes, like, I just was like, so what do you feel about this? And he told me, and I was like, yeah, I just totally disagree with that. I think this total opposite thing. We had
Mhm.
like an hour 30-minute conversation about this where I was just like taking the opposite thing. And finally, he was like, I cannot believe you believe this, like
Mhm.
that this is your position here. And I was like, actually, it's not. And he
Mhm.
was like, what? Like it was like so, and I was like, I think about just that ridiculousness of like it was more just about the conversation of like
Yeah.
having the conversation to see what would it be like. Like I was just trying it on to
Yes.
see what it would be like to have this different opinion about something. And
You
it
were
wasn't that
doing an
I even believed it.
in-house, debate exercise of, like,
Yes. Yes.
let's pick differing and opposing views, even if it's not our own, and figure out
Yes.
how to argue it, and
Yes.
yeah, I love that.
Yes. I'm not sure he loved it.
I'm
But
sure he
but I
did.
think after it was like that's not actually what I view, but I think it was just like I wanted to try things on. And
Mhm.
so I think that's the other thing is like when you think you know something about your kids, sometimes they're trying something on. And
Yeah.
it's totally normal for them to
Mm.
try on several things before
Yeah.
they settle into what they feel. And then that could change too, just
Yeah.
like we can change, right?
Mhm.
Like we might be like, this is something that's really important to me. And now actually that is less important because I'm valuing this other thing more. And so those things come in opposition. And so I picked this as the thing that is my overarching theme of my morals or values or whatever it is. And I think, it's hard, but I think our kids are going to try things on and as much as we can to not take them personally of like, this is just normal.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes me think about like what a gift it is to allow ourselves to be challenged by our
Mm-hmm.
kids. Like that's a gift to us. I think that's a gift to them to
Yeah.
be open and humble enough to be like, yeah, you think differently about that. Wow, tell me more. I want
Yeah.
to understand more about how you see that differently and see if it makes any difference for me, and allowing like being malleable enough and sturdy enough to accept challenge, to accept difference, to
Mm-hmm.
value difference. And again, as with anything, I'm not saying there aren't edges to that
Yeah.
or
Sure.
where lines might be crossed in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a gift to allow for some of that intellectual and emotional and philosophical
Mm-hmm.
debate and challenge.
Yeah. Well, and their friends, I mean, like, I think in a lot of groups in young adults, they are talking through some of these
Yeah.
things. They are having conversations around this stuff. And so we're a good sounding block for them to come back to present the other side to see, do they feel that way? And sometimes I don't know what your teenagers are like or what your experience with teenagers is like, but sometimes when we tell them they can't do something, that is
Oh,
exactly the thing they want to do,
yep.
even if it isn't the thing they want to do. But if we
Right.
tell them no, it's like, don't be with him. Don't be with her. Don't believe that. Don't participate in this. And then it's like, that is the thing they want more than anything, even though they don't really, but it's just that desire to have autonomy and control over their own trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, as well as we can't just give them or any of us the brain the not. Like, here's what you can't do, because then that's
Mm-hmm.
all the brain will perseverate on. Like, if I said, okay, Bryce, when you leave this podcast, I want you do not look at any white trucks, pickup trucks on the road. Like, your brain is going to see every single white truck
Yes.
within a
Yes.
5-mile radius. Like, it's going to
And
happen.
maybe for days. Yeah.
Yeah, for days, right? And so, yeah, also not just giving that you can't do this. It's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes saying like, here are presenting other options or other
Mm-hmm.
ideas or other thoughts. Or I just think also the less certain and definitive that we can be about things sometimes is better soil for
Mm-hmm.
those kids to grow in.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times I feel like they come to a pretty reasonable place when
Yeah.
we don't try to control it of
Yeah.
like, like I'm struggling with this, like I'm having a hard time with this part. Right?
Mhm.
Because again, you're not setting the rules for them. Like
Mhm.
oftentimes they're adulting outside of your home. So you
Right.
can't be like, if you're not home by 12 p.m., well, I
Right.
mean, you have no control over that,
Yeah.
right? Like they are living in their own place. And so I think, and even when they are living at your house, like
Yeah.
finding a way to balance the load, right? Of like, I want you to have fun, but also now that you're home, I know you were at college just a minute ago, but like now you're home and now I worry about you. When you're not here, like there's no place for me to worry. So how can we come to a place where
An
we're
agreement.
both able to navigate through this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What
And
are
and I think it's
agreements we're
hard.
both willing to make? Yeah,
Yes. And it's hard. I mean, just so hard, like thinking
yeah,
about that. But I think putting the like firm thing down, like you can't stay here unless you're home by midnight or unless you're home or whatever. Like it's like, well, what is that really teaching them? Again, you can't trust yourself, only
right.
trust parents. And we want them to trust
Mhm,
themselves. We
mhm,
want them to learn how to make good choices and say, like, oh, this doesn't feel safe, or there's nothing really good to be going on. I'm going to go home or whatever. We want them to feel like they can do
mhm,
make a different choice and
mm,
that we would support that too.
yeah. Yeah, it fosters more proactive self-autonomy instead of reactiveness, because when
Yeah.
we draw those hard lines and then we're just gonna get a reaction.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they still may defy us anyways. I mean, so like they're
Yeah,
probably going to do the thing. So like you're not going to feel happy with it. But if you come to an agreement,
right.
right, then that at least you're like, if you hold up your part, I'll do mine. And
Mhm,
so then that's where we're at. That seems to
mhm,
be more productive.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
what okay, so we've talked about like the importance of their relationship. Let's say that we're not doing a great job. We haven't historically done a great job. We've been like, I want my kids to listen to me and follow all of my rules and respect my authority, et cetera. And so it hasn't been maybe a relationship that's built on openness, right? And being able to communicate as well and get advice because, maybe they fear judgment or they
Mhm.
know that they'll be in trouble. So how you've said that you can fix it along the way. What can we do to like open those lines of communication or repair
Yeah.
that place?
I think it comes with a heavy dose of accountability and humility and the willingness to own. I see, even if I thought I was doing the best thing, I can see now, right,
Mm-hmm.
that this was not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't loving and this wasn't supportive and this wasn't connected. And I can see ways that this has harmed you. Or you tell me the ways that maybe some of the ways I've parented has been harmful or not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and repair, I think, looks a lot like then truly moving forward and doing it differently. If
Mm-hmm.
we only do accountability and humility and we don't change anything, that's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're stopping short of the full repair process.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing to then see the mistake, name the mistake, own the mistake, and then correct the
Mm-hmm.
mistake and do it differently. Where again, this is where you need a lot of input and feedback from that other person that you're in the relationship
Mm-hmm.
with, your kid, to say this, what would work better? How can we
Mm-hmm.
do this differently that in a way that would feel better for you? It feels very simplistic, but those actions, each one individually and then as a whole, are very, very difficult to execute or can
Mm-hmm.
be. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying always, but they can be really hard for people to execute because ego gets in the way or emotion gets in the way or I need to have not made a mistake gets in the way or like there are
Mm-hmm.
things that can disrupt that process that again sounds simple, but it's not.
Yeah. Well, and I think, yeah, if somebody's taking accountability and they want to get better at something or they want to do something differently, most of us do really honor that. Like we
Mhm,
are pretty open to that idea. And then to see somebody try, right? Even if they
mhm,
don't succeed at that time, but you can see that there's effort. Or even if they say like, hey, I've been really making effort to X. Have
mhm.
you noticed? Is that helpful? Are we moving towards the right
Right.
place?
Yeah. It's that feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you're continually monitoring and paying attention to and inviting that feedback loop. Here's something I'm doing. Is that help? Do you think that's effective? Does that help
Mm-hmm.
you feel more? Does that help you feel like like I'm not judging you? Or
Mm-hmm.
do I need to maybe keep tweaking it and doing something a little bit different? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, so I think the last question I want to ask you, I
Yeah.
mean, there's 1,000 more that I want to ask, let's be honest, but I will conclude with this. Are there practical strategies for parents to balance giving advice and letting their children make mistakes, right? So, like, if
Mhm.
you see that your kid, I guess the difference on this one is we've said, like, give space, like, allow them to be in control. But, like,
Mhm.
if you see them going a direction where you perceive a mistake is being made, right? Like, maybe there's a job offer that you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. There's no way they're ever going to get this kind of job offer again. Or they
Mhm.
get a full ride to a particular university or maybe they don't and you're like go
Mhm.
the other way, right? Like this
Mhm.
is not the right path and you're feeling some really intense feelings about that.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do we navigate that part of like allowing them control, not saying our piece but also balancing giving advice?
Mhm. I'm always a huge proponent of large doses of curiosity. If
Mm-hmm.
you see them going down a path that you're like, "Whoa, whoa, wait a second," figure out what is it that you don't understand. Like, do you have a good understanding of why are they making this decision? What is it that's guiding them as they think
Mm-hmm.
about this? What are they paying attention to? What are they thinking through as they make these decisions? So really being curious, even when it's like you want to put in like a roadblock and be like, nope, this path is unavailable. Try again another day. Because I know that what's at the end of this is not good for you. Or, right, it's again, there's a little bit of pride associated with us thinking we know what should happen or how it should go. So I think curiosity is maybe part of a skill there. And and I think it's not completely inappropriate to say, man, you've got these things laid out. Here are maybe some things that I think about or that I worry about, or do you want to know what I think or what my concerns might be? Doesn't mean they're right, right? You have to leave it open-ended. I think that's also such an important part of guidance and or consultation in this phase of life is being able to say, and you know what? I could be totally off. This is kind of how I'm thinking about it or what I'm thinking through, but I'm not even sure I'm on the right path. Leaving enough, it's an illusion that we know. Leaving enough curiosity, leaving enough humility, leaving enough open-ended, leaving enough, I'm not sure and I don't know. Tell me what you think. I think is an important back and forth around that. I don't know if that answers your.
No, I think it does because I think the truth is we can't stop them. I mean, as much as you can control a toddler. I don't know if anybody has tried to control toddlers, but I'm in the thralls of that. And I think, you can want the toddler to do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're going to. Like you can say, if you hit your sister, this is what's going to happen. And they're like, whack, that just happened. Right. And so the truth is we're all making mistakes. We're all testing boundaries. We're all trying things out and we are going to fail at times. Right. And the real test, to me, at least, like the thing I think about is about picking yourself back up and figuring out a new strategy, not doing the same thing over and over again. Right. Like to try something new, that's ideal. But just because I guess failure is perceived, right? But like just because you have a step that doesn't go quite well, or you're as the parent dreading this choice because you think it's maybe not going to lead them to the right place, we can't make those choices for them. So you can only provide information if it's wanted, right? And there might be times where you say like, hey, like I know you spend a lot of time thinking about this. Could I offer some thoughts I have, or would you be open to hearing some concerns I have? And they might say no.
Right.
And you might get totally stonewalled, right? Like you might get, but oftentimes I find that is a historical thing where they have not been allowed or felt allowed to express their opinion. And so that's why they're doing that, because they're like, whatever I say, you're going to disagree with anyways. So it doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah.
That's not always the case, but
sure. Well, and you may even be right about what's at the end of the path. Like your concerns or your intuition or your sort of weird leeriness of any certain path may turn out being what actually happens. And I think that is also a situation in which if we're talking about this openness that's full of trust and love and connection, it can't be, well, I tried to tell you that's how it was going to go. Like, right. We can't do that. If we say, don't climb that, you're going to fall off to a toddler. And then they fall off. What do we want our response to be? We want to go to them. We want to tend to them. We want to help them in any way that they can and say, oh, didn't that hurt so bad? It's literally the same thing, but just for a different age level appropriation or how I said all those words wrong, but that's fine. I think that it's the same thing. We could even say like, that job, I don't know if you should take it. And here's what I'm thinking about. And here's what might happen. And here are my concerns. And they choose it anyway. And then all of those things come true. We have to be so careful in how we respond to them in that place. And we want to go to them and we want to help pick them up if they're open to it. And we want to say, that's so hard. That's so hard. That's so frustrating. What a disappointment. I'm so sorry that you're feeling that. That is a really hard lesson to learn. I'm right here for you if you need anything. We're going to cheer you on to whatever is next. And we're so excited to see what happens and what you learn and how this unfolds. It has to be more of that and not the, I told you so. And yeah, you really messed this up. And that's going to create disconnection. It's going to create distrust. It's going to create distance. It can't.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, what do you want parents to leave with from this conversation? Because this has been so helpful and such good information.
I think one of the things that I would want people to leave with is it's okay to get it wrong. We're not going to know. We don't know all the time. We're doing the best that we can, and we're going to screw it up sometimes. And also, I feel like this time period when you have these 20 somethings who don't have fully developed brains yet, like this is sometimes where you start to learn the ways that you've messed it up before. And I think that continues throughout adulthood, right? That they're figuring out and learning, why do I do this? Oh, here's why. Mom used to tell me this and that, and there are ways that we're going to get it wrong. There are ways that we're going to mess it up. And there's so much neuroplasticity in the brain and whatever, there's so much relationship elasticity that can be mended and healed and changed. And you can really continue building a beautiful relationship that does not rely on you getting everything right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Carrie. You were an amazing guest.
Thanks, Bryce.
Thanks again, Carrie. That was an awesome conversation. I hope that you took away some little pieces or maybe huge concepts that you can apply to your relationships with either young adults in the future or currently in this difficult transition that we don't put a lot of time towards. I'm so glad that we have Carrie and her personal experience as well as expertise to help us navigate this process. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Please like and subscribe to our show. If you would do me a huge favor, and share this episode with another family if you feel like they would benefit from us, that would be amazing. And also, if you would hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you listen to, that would be greatly appreciated. I would love it if you would continue to send emails with topic suggestions for future shows, as well as to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And also, I want you to have a fantastic day. Thanks for taking your time to listen to our show today. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.